teaching Activism and Artivism by Diego Duran Medina, NAIS Teacher of the Future. I currently serve as the Director of Service and Activism at the Edmund Burke School. Today I want to talk about what it actually means to empower students. What does it mean to have a student-centered curriculum, and how do we achieve it? And how do we allow student voice to come through? The way that I do this is through teaching a course called Activism. What words come to mind when you hear that word? And what brings you here? What do you want to know about teaching Activism? Let's think about activism as pedagogy. How many of you teach values? Should schools be teaching activism? Do we teach students to answer or to question? Activism can create a space for addressing some of these questions through an academic and critical process. Let's define activism. In a general sense, it's intentional action to bring about social, political, economic, or environmental change. The point is to first define and communicate what your opinion is. What do you think about this definition? What would you critique about this definition? The Activism course is a service learning course focused on two questions. What are my values, and how do my values affect how I view and understand social justice? How do we actually accomplish this in the course? Well, we learn about homelessness and poverty with real experiences of service. We learn about the blueprint, and then students use the blueprint to create their manifest project, in this case, a podcast. We focus on homelessness because it's a prevalent issue, both locally and nationally, and it tends to be both visible and invisible. It's accessible poverty, meaning students can actually have a deep experience with the topic. The course includes 6 service visits in a 13-week course and a strong relationship to a nonprofit working on homelessness. Students also complete their required service hours for junior year. On the academic side, students learn about a blueprint or a plan for researching their topic, which is always chosen by the student. Then they use the blueprint to work on their manifest project. Student choice plus student voice equals power. The blueprint is really a series of 6 critical questions for every topic: recollect, research, reason, respond, react, and reflect. Let's go through each one of these in detail. The first step is to recollect. What do you already know about your topic? And what would you like to find out? Then research. What data exists on your topic? What organizations or people are involved in your topic? What are some stories, and what actions or solutions have already been taken to address your topic? Then reason. Why does your topic exist? And why does your topic matter? Now respond. What do others in the community think about your topic? And now that you've heard their opinion, has your thinking changed at all? Taking everything into account, now react. How could your issue be improved or solved? What are the advantages and disadvantages to your proposed solution? And finally, reflect. What did you learn about yourself through this research? What questions do you still have about your topic? After students answer all of these questions, they create their podcast or manifest project. Let's listen in to what one of these podcasts actually sounds like.
When imagining the United States military, what are some words that come to mind? Strength, tradition, security. For some men and women in the service, this image is distorted by distress caused by conflict. War is not all glory and honor. It takes an enormous amount of willpower to keep control during a situation that has quickly gotten disastrous. For example, what if you witnessed a car bombing? Could you still have the capacity to do your job as a medical technician and treat an 8-year-old with glass embedded in his face? Scenes like this can haunt people for the rest of their life, and to make matters worse, no one is able to tell if that person is suffering. Someone once told me that the military is the only place where you can't just say, "I quit," when you can't handle the job. They're right. Deserting the U.S. military is punishable by law. So many soldiers get caught up in this image that the military is invulnerable, that feeling mentally disturbed is a sign of weakness. They can't quit, and they don't want the disgrace of filing for a mental health checkup. Some are even bullied by superiors, many of whom can't understand depression. That is probably why an estimated 22% of veterans returning from the war in Iraq experience symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. These signs may start with a lack of motivation and escalate to severe panic attacks. Post-traumatic stress is not only restricted to the battlefield and can come in many forms. A common non-combat cause of veteran PTSD is military sexual trauma, which affects both genders. It does not discriminate by gender or race. PTSD is not understood and has just recently gained sympathy. What these veterans need is support, not pity. To start, people need to trust that they understand their own mental state. Education on depression and how to treat PTSD should be mandatory training, not just for those who volunteer to learn it.
We can also talk about Artivism, or Art plus Activism. This is an extension of the class, and in this case it's an elective for seniors. It still uses the blueprint, but now there are more artifacts available beyond the podcast, including filmmaking. Let's look at one example.
Zena Moosegrove, a resident of Chevy Chase in upper northwest Washington, D.C., has lived quietly at her house on Northampton Street for 30 years. Over the last 3 decades, she cultivated a lavish native garden, which has kept her house natural in an ever-urbanizing city. On August 28, 2009, her garden was devastated. The Washington, D.C. Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs tore up her cherished vegetation in an aborted cleanup arranged by the Metropolitan Police Department. But why did they do it?
The explanation that's been given is the ultimate, basically bureaucratic snafu.
What happened to Fenty's Going Green initiatives? Why is DC attacking our only natural environments left? The story begins when Zena receives a notice of violation from the DCRA claiming excessive vegetative growth of over 10 inches.
What the regulations say is that no matter how high they are, if you have a genuine garden and you're growing native species, that there's a lot more leeway.
In it, she comments,
I do not recognize my description of violation. I cultivate a garden without poisons using neither herbicides nor pesticides. I try to encourage the growth of native plants. I would like to meet with the inspector to discuss ways we can promote the natural gardens that I espouse and strongly believe is right.
The case was stayed while it was being appealed. In other words, if they issue a summons and you don't appeal it and you don't abate the violation, then they have the right to go in and do that. But once you appeal it, then you're saying they don't have the right to do that, and they can't do that while the appeal is pending. And in this case, there was actually a specific agreement between Zena and the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs through their attorney not to do anything while this case was pending. We have a case. We are dealing with that case very rationally with the attorney for D.C., but that doesn't necessarily mean that the bureaucrats that are pushing the paper are dealing rationally or talking with their own attorney. And what happened in this case is while the attorney and the judge and the parties are presumably cooperating, somebody on some desk in the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs moved it from one pile to another, and they saw there'd been no response, and they moved it to the abatement pile, and one day we came home, and the rest is history.
In the meantime, Zena has rebuilt her garden as much as possible, but it has yet to fully resemble the luscious forest of its prime days.
So what do you take away? What questions do you still have about activism or artivism? And in what ways do you think this could be improved? I want to know what you think. Email me at dcartivist@gmail.com. Check out my site, teachingactivism.org, in our blog, teachersofthefuture.org.